Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking. Today we're going to talk about the 10 most effective martial arts in my humble opinion. Let's get to it. Now before we begin, I would like to define the word effective, what I mean by effective. By effective I mean that if you were to train for a very long time in one of these martial arts, which of these styles would increase the likelihood of you not only defeating your opponent but actually surviving a fight to death in a street combat situation. So all those styles that are full of rules and regulations that are actually there to deliver a more sport-oriented form of training will obviously be penalized in this list. The other term of comparison that we will use is actually in between these martial arts. If you would have an athlete training in this martial art against another athlete training in another martial art, considering both pros and cons of these martial arts, which one would have a higher chance of defeating the other? Now, of course, this is a very hypothetical discussion. We do need to keep in mind that at the end of the day, it all really depends on the athlete himself, not only the style. So for this hypothetical video, we're just considering the exact same person, the exact same athlete with the same characteristic, training for the exact same amount of time in all of these styles. Which of these would produce the final and ultimate most effective result at the end of the training? Now, I myself have practiced martial arts. I've tried 3 styles. So I would like to say that in this video, I'm just talking about effectiveness, not personal preference. So the styles that I've practiced will be in the list, and I will say so, but they haven't actually got to the very top of the list. So this should actually assure you that I'm not using just personal preference, but I'm actually considering some factors that I consider to be dramatically important in one style in order for it to be effective in a real combat situation. Number 10, traditional karate. Now, traditional karate is one of the styles that I have practiced when I was a teenager. Now, it's definitely a very good style and it has a lot of positive aspects. Now, the reason why it's number 10 in this list is because most traditional karate styles are based on a system called karate point. Now, although some of these athletes practicing karate are actually able to perform very, very beautifully executed moves and are actually very quick, the restrictions that this style poses, as for example the idea of having these not realistic fights, are definitely a disadvantage in my opinion. The fact that you just simply need to hit the opponent and then the fight is going to be stopped, even if the opponent is still standing, simply because you have scored a point, does not make you into a fighter who is used to actual street fight and full contact sparring. Now, some people will argue that these are all rules and regulations that are needed in order for the competition to be safe. But if an actual traditional karateka fighter had to fight for his own life, he wouldn't just stop to the first blow, he would actually continue fighting. My objection to this is that you get good at something by doing it, and you're simply used to stop each time because the referee is giving you the point. Then there will be 2 problems. First, you will not be used to comboing and continuing your fight, and secondly, you will not be used to hitting with your entire strength, which brings a completely different level of balancing yourself and having your fists and legs used to hitting hard. Number 9, boxing. Now, often when we think of karate and we compare it to boxing, we immediately think that karate would have an advantage because of the fact that karateka use their legs, whereas boxers don't. But this would be actually a big myth to bust because boxers do use their legs a lot in combat. They don't use them to attack, but they do use them to dodge, to move. So leg work is very, very important, if not essential in boxing, just as much as fists. So although a karateka would have an advantage because of the fact that he can use more parts of his body to attack, a boxer is used to full contact sparring, and this, as far as I'm concerned, gives it the edge and brings it to number 9 in this list. Number 8, kickboxing. Now, with kickboxing, we bring the punches from box together with the kicks and other techniques similar to that which we find in karate. All of this with full contact sparring. This is why I think that kickboxing training at the end of the day, although it lacks all the spiritual training that karate has, which is also very, very beautiful, I believe would have an edge against both traditional karate and boxing. Number 7, judo. Now, although judo is sometimes considered more of a sport rather than a martial art, I believe that it is a martial art regardless of the fact that it is now found in Olympic Games. Now, although judo practitioners or judoka don't actually train how to use punches and kicks, it is also important that many times that I've seen a judo fighter fight against a karate or a kickboxer or any other stand-up fighter, if they manage to lay their hands on the other fighter and they manage to get a throw or to put them on the ground, then it is over for that fight, because the kickboxer or the karateka and even the boxer will not have almost any training on how to fight on the ground. Although it is possible for a kickboxer to simply deliver a proper powerful kick, or a boxer or a karateka to use a very strong punch and knock the judoka down, often what I notice is that stand-up fighters tend to look for openings and try to find ways to enter the guard of the opponent, perhaps using a little bit of a jab or using some kicks just to test the situation. This is definitely something that you should not do against a judoka. If you are a kickboxer or a karateka or a boxer and you need to fight against a judoka, you need to strike him hard with the best you get. This is why, as far as I'm concerned, judo has a slight advantage over the styles I've mentioned before. Number 6. Taekwondo. Well, Taekwondo is a very spectacular Korean martial art that we all remember again because of the Olympics. Taekwondo tends to be very interesting because it's basically the opposite of Western box, as Taekwondo tend to focus almost entirely on their repertoire of kicks, which is the biggest among all martial arts. Now, this is a very difficult and tough style to learn. If you really need to learn those tornado kicks, you will need years of practice and a lot of stretching. But it is definitely a very lethal martial art, and some positive aspects of this martial art is the fact that it's full contact and that it teaches you to perform really deadly spinning kicks and moves so quickly that if you manage to execute them well, you can one-shot your opponent. Now, against judo, I think that Taekwondo can have a slight advantage because of the fact that since they use kicks most of the times, they tend to give a longer distance or longer range. They're very good at calculating the proper range for a flying kick. So it would be harder for a judoka, in my humble opinion, to actually get close enough to a taekwondoka to perform a throw. Now, one negative aspect of taekwondo, which doesn't bring it all the way up to this list, is the fact that they don't actually use punches, so I think it's an incomplete martial art, and also that they basically don't block. They're most of the time trying to dodge, but sometimes that doesn't work. It would have been a lot easier to just raise your hands. Number 5, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, although I would like to put Jiu-Jitsu, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu here as well, together with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I have to say that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a very effective style because it's almost an improved version of Judo, so to speak. They tend to have less rules and regulations. As one of these guys lays his hands on you, it's going to be a huge problem. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu seems to be a very effective complementary martial art. I would still recommend a stand-up martial art to be practiced with it, but it's still a very good style that I find particularly effective, and this is why I put it up here on my list. Number 4, Kyokushin Karate. Now, although this is theoretically a style of karate, it's very, very different from traditional karate, and I myself consider it to be basically a completely different martial art. I have had experience in Kyokushin Karate for 1 year in Japan, and I consider it to be a very effective martial art. One thing that it has that makes it very different from traditional karate is the fact that, first of all, it's full contact. Secondly, you can use a lot of knee attacks, you can use your elbows. There is a huge variety of attacks that you can perform. And Kyokushin Karate fighters actually have a lot of training where they simply receive blows and get hit constantly in order to get used to being hit so that they can resist longer, even if they were caught off guard. Now, this, together with the fact that most of the sparring here, as I said, is completely full contact and it's until KO, definitely brings it up in the list and makes it a very effective style of combat. Some of the negative aspects of Kyokushin Karate that I have found, and this is the reason why, although it's my favorite martial art, it's actually not the top of the list, is because basically they have a rule whereas they don't allow punches to the face. Now, this makes it very, very problematic in order of effectiveness, because again, when you have two Kyokushin Karate fighters fighting each other, that's not a problem. They can kick their face and they can punch the body. But when you have a Kyokushin Karate fighter having to fight with another martial artist who is allowed to hit him in the face, he will be at a disadvantage. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I mostly disagree with Kyokushin Karate fights is that when they fight other styles, for example, Muay Thai or other karate styles or even Wing Chun Kung Fu, they actually make sure that these fights are played according to Kyokushin Karate rules. So even the other styles are not allowed to punch Kyokushin Karateka fighters in the face. And I find this to be very wrong. If you want to measure the effectiveness of a style, then you should not limit the other styles to your rules. Ultimately, similarly to, as I said, with traditional karate, even if people were to object and tell me, well, a Kyokushin Karate fighter doesn't hit the face because of safety reasons, but if he wanted to, he could. Again, I defend my point again the same way as I did before. If you don't train to hit the face, you will not be effective at hitting the face even when you become allowed to do so. And most importantly, you have to consider that Kyokushin Karate fighters are used to fight against other Kyokushin Karate fighters all the time, meaning that you will naturally develop basically a blind spot as far as punches in the face are concerned, because you don't need to defend yourself from those. Number 3, MMA. Now, although MMA means mixed martial arts, and it used to be originally just a sort of tournament where people practicing lots of different martial arts would just meet and fight, it has eventually evolved into a single martial art with its own set of rules, which come from lots of different styles. Now, MMA has got elements of karate, elements of kickboxing, elements of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I find it to be a very effective style and also a very brutal one. If you have watched some of those cage fights where the people went out bleeding, you can immediately imagine that fighting one of these guys in a pub would definitely not be a pleasant experience. This is why MMA in this top 10 list reaches number 3. Number 2. Kung Fu. Now, when I say Kung Fu, I am aware that it's an umbrella term and there are lots and hundreds of styles. Now, please consider that when I say Kung Fu or Gong Fu, I do not mean very specific styles such as Tai Chi, as I don't consider those to be effective at all in an actual fight. They might be good for your health and balancement, but definitely not preparing you to fight for your life. In this case, when I say Kung Fu, I mean mostly Shaolin Gong Fu and Wing Chun Kung Fu. I found the first to be a very effective style of preparing people not only for fights for your life but actually for war. Shaolin monks, they train pain resistance, so they get hit constantly in order to make their body stronger and more resistant. And it seems that there have been actual scientific studies that prove that a monk's skull and bones are actually several times stronger than normal people because of the training that they do. I find this similar to the concept that we have found in Kyokushin Karate, but even more enhanced. And as far as Wing Chun Kung Fu, well, I find it to be a very pragmatic, a very effective and reasonable style, which trains you to fight quickly, to throw as many hits as you can, and to be incredibly precise. Now, before moving to the top of this list and number 1, there is an honorable mention that I would like to make. That is Jeet Kune Do. Bruce Lee was one of the strongest martial artists who have ever walked the planet. But the reason why I didn't put it in this list is because of the very nature of Jeet Kune Do and Bruce Lee's philosophy. What he was fighting against was codified martial arts, just like karate, judo, kung fu, and taekwondo. What he tried to do with Jeet Kune Do was to take all the positive aspects of these martial arts and put them all together. He did not want to have a codified style. What this means is that each Jeet Kune Do practitioner can be different from the other, as there is no very precise form. This is why, although perhaps some practitioner of this martial arts might be very, very effective, this martial art will not be on this list because of the huge variety of possibilities and variables that we could have within it because of its very nature. So now we move to number 1 of this list. The most effective martial arts style, in my opinion, is Muay Thai. Muay Thai or Thai box is an incredibly brutal martial art practice in Thailand. Now, the reason why I find it to be number 1 is because of many aspects of this martial art that make it incredibly effective. The first one is the fact that, of course, they fight full contact. They basically use their entire body to hit, not only focusing on roundhouse kicks and spinning kicks, but also elbow and knee strikes. Very famous of Thai box is the clinch. So although perhaps they're not used to fight on the ground as much, it is very dangerous to lay your hands on one of these guys because he can just start hitting you with his knees, and these people are trained to knock you down when they do so. So even a judoka or a Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner should be very careful. Another thing that really makes this style interesting is the way they train their shin. They hit banana trees constantly with their shins for years in order to train their shins and turn their bones into rocks. So their bones are literally incredibly tough, and if you get hit by one of those kicks, they can easily break your leg if you're not trained. And if they hit you in the head, they can deal some severe head trauma. But perhaps what makes this style the most effective, in my opinion, is the cultural situation in which Muay Thai practitioners practice. Most of these are just poor kids who, in the reality of, for example, Bangkok and other cities, the only hope that they have to escape their poverty is to become a Muay Thai champion. So these people are fighting for their life, which is very different from most modern martial art practitioners who are just people who go to a dojo or to a training center, but then they just have their normal life. These boys train for their lives. Their life is Muay Thai. And this is why, in my opinion, this is the most effective style on the planet. Alright, so you made it until the end of the video. Thank you very much for your time and thank you for watching. Now, did you enjoy the video? And most importantly, do you agree with my list? Well, whether you do agree or you don't, please let me know in the comments below and let me know which martial arts you have practiced in your life. Now, of course, please keep in mind that this is simply my own opinion based on my personal experiences with around 4 years of martial arts. I imagine quite a lot of people will have different ideas and perhaps some people will agree with me. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.